You are listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer. Chitra Iyer is a parent of 25-year-old Shravan Iyer who has epilepsy, cerebral palsy and autism. She is the CEO of MFA and has been helping families with life-centered planning to reach their personal financial goals. She is also a trustee of a parent support group, the Forum for Autism, which was set up almost 2 decades ago. MFA is an 18-year-old organization in the personal finance space. They have set up a dedicated practice to help families with special needs children to plan their financial goals and invest for them. The thoughts shared here are a result of the discussion with parents, caregivers, siblings, and professionals regarding the planning of a person with special needs.
Hello, everyone. A big warm welcome to you on this expert series of my podcast for special needs children. Thank you for your time and agreeing to do this interview with me, ma'am. Hello, Miss Natarajan.
Hi, how are you?
To introduce you formally to our listeners, Ms. Poonam Natarajan is the former chairperson of the National Trust for Welfare of Persons with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Mental Retardation, and Multiple Disabilities, which is part of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, New Delhi, India. As chairperson of the National Trust at the Ministry of Social Welfare, she was engaged in making disability policies and legislation. She has pioneered a range of programs for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the area of health insurance, livelihoods, and assisted living. She also served as a member of the New Law Committee, which was formed to harmonize national legislation with the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. She has co-authored a book on management of cerebral palsy called A Transdisciplinary Approach. Having been one of the pioneers of disability and developmental activities in India since 1985, it was then that she founded the Spastics Society of India, Chennai, which is presently known as Vidya Sagar, an ocean of knowledge. Vidya Sagar runs several programs today, including early intervention, special education, and other therapies, co-curricular activities, counseling, vocational training, exploring and creating employment opportunities, and training of resource persons to work in the field of disability. Poonam Natarajan is at present working on setting up a resource center for living independently in the community. This is pioneering work for adults with disabilities. It is named BLISS, Begin to Live Interdependently with Support Systems. The main objective is to set up a model of support in the community for adults with disabilities. Wow, ma'am, you have such a amazing wealth of experience of having dealt with government, having dealt with parents, having dealt with so many colleagues in this field. I'm just eagerly waiting to start off with our interview.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Chitra.
So, ma'am, could you please walk our listeners through your journey of how you founded Vidya Sagar and as the chair of the National Trust too?
Oh, yeah, that's a long story. And it's 39 years old. But yeah, I'd just like to say that my son was born with cerebral palsy, with intellectual disability, and also he had a visual impairment. And when he was born, it was difficult actually to find out what one can do for him. There's no uh, pathway which is available, which a doctor tells you where to go, what to do, especially I'm talking about almost years ago. And then that is why I decided, though I was in academics and I was doing my PhD, I decided to quit that and train in special education at the Spastics Society of India, Bombay. And I actually went there more to find out what to do for my son. But I just loved the field and I found it so creative and, so it's very exciting. And therefore, I never went back to academics and have been in this field since then for the last 4 decades. I worked in the Delhi Center, Spastic Society of Northern India, now called ADI, for about 3 years because we were in Delhi at that time. And then my husband got transferred to Chennai, Madras. It was called Madras at that time. And it was difficult to get admission for my son because he was very profoundly disabled. And anyway, I was also keen to start services. Not in my main area of work that I wanted to do was with families, working with parents and working with families, and basically demystifying the condition, which I found very wanting in terms of what the doctors could help you. The doctors did not know much about this condition, and they would just say, oh, he'll be much slower than other children, or he'll forget about him, have another child. But they couldn't tell you exactly what to do. And they don't even study about developmental disabilities in their MBBS course. And even now, we're still struggling to put those modules in the MBBS course. They say they have, but I don't think so. Anyway, so I decided that I would want to work with families and want to demystify disability and want to, support families in being able to find solutions and not just run around all over the place trying to see what they can do, and which is the most innovating thing, shopping for a treatment. So that's how I started at home. In my garage, I thought I'll set up a small center. Anyway, my husband was on a transferable job. So it was all, I thought we'll be here for a couple of years. So I'll do a small center working with families. And but since I had trained at Spastics Society of India and Dr. Meetu Allur had been my teacher, and I thought I needed some kind of technical support. I asked her if it could be a branch of the Spastic Society. And she said, yes, we will give you technical support, but the rest of it is yours. You have to set up a center. It's like a painting. Nobody else can tell you how to make a painting, how you start. And how do you start? Because where do you start? I didn't have the money I didn't know anybody in Chennai. I didn't have a team to work with, and I was wondering what to do. And but I did go and visit all the centers in the city and see what is happening and kind of have a good idea of what the services available in Chennai were. And then I had some friends, a dancer, she's Chandralekha, and she's very much older than me and a very, very well-known dancer. And I used to go to her house and watch her practice, and I just loved her place. And I was telling her, we want to start a center. And she said, we can help you with the poster workshop. And that's how I started. We started, she said, we will teach people how to make posters, how to do screen printing, and we'll make a poster for your center. So we started the first day with about 8 of us, and she just helped us to think through and what would we like to say on the poster and draw it and make some drawings. And starting from there, it slowly evolved. 6 workshops we had, starting with 8 people. At the end, there were 40 people. I didn't know many of them, just people calling their friends and friends. And we printed 100 posters for the center. And there were some journalists who wrote about this new center that's going to come up. And that's how I just started with no money and no team in the garage. But I had met 2 parents, and I had actually started talking to them and working with their children once a week. And so they came, and on the 15th of March, 1985, we just lit a small lamp in our garage and, set it all up for a center to start. And and I was not really thinking it's going to be some long-term, big, huge facility kind of a thing. But it was just amazing that the number of parents who came. And one of the things I kept in my mind was that I don't want to say no. I'm not going to choose children. I'm not going to say, oh, this guy, because that's what they do in most special schools. If you don't have a good prognosis, they may not give you admission. And that's what I didn't want to do. So as families worked in, we were just amazed at the number of people in the first week itself. I thought I'll work with about 15 to 20 families, and I had 40 families at my door in about 5 days. And of course, I had met some doctors and told them about the center I was starting. And we put up these posters. And so we got quite known in the city, and people were coming. And at that time, I'd also met a speech therapist, and she said, "I've got a little baby, but I'd love to work, and I'd come in part time." So then she started Asha Palvi Kumar, and she was like the co-founder, but she didn't have enough time really to, really share in all the challenges and struggles, especially in terms of raising funds or whatever. But 3 days later, I had a child who came, who'd been referred by the hospital, by the therapist there. And then I had done an assessment and I said, let me go and meet your therapist. And I went to Child Trust Hospital and met Abha Ranjan, and she was working there part time. And I said, hey, why don't you come and join us? And she came, and so we became a kind of a trio of occupational therapists, speech therapists, and me. And so it was quite a nice team. And this team slowly has grown. And today, of course, we have about 160 people on the staff. So it's been a long journey since the three of us worked. And then we had a special educator who was from Chennai doing a special ed in Bombay, who came and joined us. Dr. Meeta Lur sent her off to us. And then we had another girl who actually joined as a typist, but loved the work and became a kind of a supporter, therapy aide. And so the team slowly grew. And the parents, so we were working with parents, and I found that it was very exciting because the idea was to basically transfer whatever skills we had to the parent and to help empower the parents to work with their children, and also to be able for the parents to be able to accept their child and help the child to have a better quality of life. And the parents and the children, and we became one really happy and very active and dynamic kind of organization. And parents would understood that it was the environment that you used for the child to play and learn. Every parent would bring a pet or a cow or a dog. And so we had, so much of excitement and children learning about so many things. And then the garage, of course, the house became too small and we couldn't accommodate. And also had to make a very difficult decision. Do I take in everybody or do I just stop at the numbers I had thought of? And generally, being me, I just decided, and nobody helped me to make that decision. Because my husband said, it's up to you. I can't tell you whether to stop or not to stop and things like that. So I said I won't say no. And so we grew to about 40 kids in the first month. But these are all parents who were coming once a week, and then they said once a week is not enough. And so we did 2 days of group therapy. So that's how it kept expanding. And then every time a child came, so we were taking in all ages. And every time a child came, a kind of a new program came up with 3 little babies, less than 1 year walking. And then we started the early intervention program. A young man of 17, I mean, over the whole, that first year, I'm saying. And then a parent came from Kanchipuram, which is about an hour and a half away. And we said, oh, how are you going to train her? Because she can't come in every week. And so she said, so we kind of an outstation program started. So it was, the parents were being trained by the therapists, and I was a teacher. And so, and they were actually contributing so much once you demystify and explain how a child learns and what needs to be done. And it's not a medical condition. And it's all about management, and it's all about learning. And their parents, some of them were excellent. They used to have such great songs and ideas and movement and for children with children with cerebral palsy and things like that. I'm not going to tell you the whole big long story, just a good introduction. And then we had to move, and then we did a fundraiser, and we had. I never thought we could do. I'd never done a fundraising in my life, but then you see those 40 people in the poster workshop became the friends of Spastic Society. And they were our fundraisers. And they said, let's do a movie premiere. And we said, okay, but how does one get one? And so one of the members there Mr. Raghavendra Rao, he said, you write to Girish Karnad, write to Shashi Kapoor and get this Utsav film premiere for Chennai. So I said, he's not going to talk to me and a school in a garage. He said, right, let's see what happens. And I wrote to him like blind, and he replied and said, yes, sure, we'll do it for your school. And that was
Wow,
our
that's fabulous.
yeah. So I think if you just step out and, get started, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like magic. Things just kept getting into place. And then we raised money and had money to rent a house, and we raised money to pay salaries to our small staff, and then we went to the Palawan Transport Corporation, and they agreed to give us a bus, and so things like that kept falling into place. And we had started the early intervention. We started a small vocational train in Balan. An 18-year-old came, and we had one mother who said, okay, you're doing all this, but I have to go to work and I can't get trained like this. And so a little small day center also started for working mothers. And so that's how, it was all need based. It wasn't like, it wasn't a planned center that I'd, put it all together, plan, and then we were setting it up one at a time. No, it just happened. We were reacting, responding to needs of the families which came to us. And we had a range of families. We had very poor people from the neighbors, from the slum nearby, another, not and a slum, not very nearby also. And then we started getting people from the hospital, the little kids would come. And then, of course, we had parents from middle class homes. So, and somehow nothing mattered. It was like magic, my drive and under the trees. Nobody bothered of what your caste or class or who you were. It was all like we were one big family working with our kids together. And then we moved into a small bungalow and we worked there. We've moved 4 times until we made our own purpose-built building, which I got from the government, the land, which took me 6 years and 1 year of standing outside the Revenue Secretary's office, just not moving day after day after day. And that's how I got the land. And so our building now is about 28 years old also. And so services. And we did so much of consultation with each other and thinking and talking and finding solutions and looking for people who can give us better ideas, that I think we became the thought leaders, at least for developmental disabilities, because we had so much to say and think. And I think what was most important was consulting families and finding out what they wanted and helping them to think through what should they want. Everybody would say, I just want him to become normal. And they said, that's not what is going to happen. So let's see what is it the maximum we can do with the child and where can we go. And then we started the day center and the school. We're also looking at inclusive education. 1 or 2 kids were sent to school, but it didn't work out. They came back and, slowly inclusive education worked. It took us some time, a lot of sitting outside principals' offices and getting thrown out and coming back. So it was all kind of persevering and doing. And so, that's a long story. Maybe later I'll tell you more details. But today we are, of course, Vidya Sagar is leader in the field and has so many different programs working. I'll talk to you about them maybe briefly later. And at that time, I also got involved because that was in the 90s, early 90s. All the new laws were being enacted, and there were two. There was the government, and there was the disabled people, and being led by Javed Abidi. And Javed and I became very good friends, and we became kind of the South Zone, whatever, representatives in the disability rights group that he set up. And we did a lot of different things and a lot of advocacy with the government from the disabled people's side, and ensuring that we get that Disability Act in 95. And then the National Trust Act, of course, came up with in a different way, but we worked very hard on the 95 Act together to lobby for it, and also to sit down and look at it word by word, so to say. So we were very active in terms of influencing policy and advocacy from the disabled people's side. And that a lot of our students became advocates, and we were the ones, anything in the city would be happening. There was a process, there was a thing for, let's say, female infanticide. There would be not a dharna, but a meeting, so to say. And if you saw for the first time in all these movements, there would be wheelchairs, and our children would be there talking against things like female infanticide or corporal punishment. So we really participated in the city, and whatever the challenges and demands from the citizens of Chennai were happening, we were all part of it. So that's how we became very well known and very active as people, as agents of change, so to say. And our children, so we have a lot of alumni who've grown up to become advocates and become very empowered and do a lot of advocacy around policy and things like that. And so we had kids who finished the 10th and then went to college, and many didn't, and vocational training. And it's a mixed bag, so to say. And then that's how, because we were so much part of the national movement with the disabled people, the acts came up, and there were 3 posts. There was the Chief Commissioner's post, there was the RCI chairman, and there was the National Trust chairman, all supposed to be civil society representatives. And the first round, the government had, chosen people. And in the second round, Javed was very keen that the disability sector also fields its own candidates. And I would have never thought of going to the National Trust, really, if it hadn't been for Javed, constantly nagging me to get out of the comfort of my Vidya Sagar and come to Delhi. So he just pushed me, and then I thought it would be an exciting thing to do. And my parents also lived in Delhi, and I had also at that time lost my husband and my son a year later, and I was by myself, and it was easy for me to move also. And so there were many reasons why I applied for the National Trust chairperson, and I was pushed by the disability. I didn't ever think I'd get that job, but the disability sectors apparently sent faxes to the Prime Minister's office or whatever they did. Anyway, so that's how I became the chair of National Trust. And at the National Trust, of course, the foundation had been laid by the former chairperson, Mrs. Aloka Guha, and so many programs had already started and things like that. And it was a government office, and it was so different to what I'd been doing at Vidya Sagar, and all the excitement and challenges and making new programs and going out there and lobbying with the government, all that. Now I was on the other side. But I had an opportunity to do something which would impact the entire country. And I was hoping for much more support from the disability sector, but the disability sector was very new, and I would try and ask them. I tried to make a roadmap and consult them on the roadmap, but they just thought once they sent the candidates, Dr. Major General Cardozo and me, it was up to us to do what we wanted. And so I felt a little bit orphaned out there. But it was okay. We managed to. I had a really. I did 8 years at the National Trust, out of which 5 were fantastic. First 1.5 years was a struggle, and the last year was not too good, but it was okay. But what I'm proud of what I did at the National Trust was, and I can't take all the credit for that. It's my joint secretary there, Mr. Atul Prasad, who was a fantastic joint secretary. And the office, I had to change the way they worked. They were clock watchers, and they had a mentality of only thinking of money, and they didn't think of people, and that a person is not just money, and there's so many other things. So had to change the way they looked at life and their outlooks and little bit here and there. It's not easy to change government service, but we became a nice team because we did little things like Friday evening, last session, half an hour, we'd all meet and have coffee together and samosas and, talk about, sing a song or talk about something more personal or something you did or somebody's child has finished 10th standard or whatever, celebrate little things. So anyway, so I managed to do that. But what I'm proud of is one is the Niramaya health insurance. I feel so good because now it's being used across the country. And wherever I go to rural areas, I was in North Karnataka doing an evaluation, and they all said they had Niramaya. And I went to Kerala, and I went to Tripura and Nagaland. Everywhere people are using Niramaya health insurance. And I remember the day when I started thinking about how does one do this, Atul Prasad hadn't yet come, but I was just exploring, and I had gone to Hyderabad to meet the IRDA with Dr. Rao, and he said it's not possible. Disabled people can't get insurance because insurance itself is in a mess, because the algorithms are in a mess. People are living so much longer now. It's all a big mess. I don't think you can put disability there. But I think once Atul Prasad joined, he helped me, and we really figured out some way to start this. And really happy that I didn't think it'll really succeed, but it's done it, and I'm very happy with that. The other things that I look back will feel good about the National Trust is that I worked hard on the Indian scale for the assessment of autism. There was the certification autism was not there, and I went to the health ministry and they said, "Oh, there's hardly any autism in the." What do you mean? Such few people, they don't need certification. And it took me some time to convince them, but they said, "Okay, then we'll have to make our own scale and not use the foreign ones." And then we had this group team we put together in NIMH, and Dr. Saroj Arya and Dr. Smita Pandey, Deshpande, they're the ones who really worked on it for 2 years and set up Eastside. And in the end, of course, it became an NIMH product and things. But I know that I spearheaded and really started the ball rolling. And then it's got stuck in many places, but it's moved on. And we did Barte Kadam, which was a great fun awareness raising program across the country. And it would be great because all the snacks which Aloka had started, all these snack leaders would come and we talk about what awareness to create in their areas, and they would travel. And we make routes for them and have workshops in each place. So that was good fun. I also tried very hard with the local level committees, because the local level committee, I think, is a very difficult to how to get it going, because it's the collector kind of is the most powerful. The NGO member and the person with disability are just left out. So I wanted to train this person with disability and really make them an active member of the LLC. So we made a manual and we started this training we call it ZTRT, zonal training for trainers. I forget what it stands for. Anyway, then, but it didn't work very well. And nobody believed that disabled people need to understand. And the problem is that most of the LLCs, first of all, there are many problems in LLCs, but the disabled person is from other disabilities, especially visually impaired and locomotor impaired. And their idea of developmental disabilities is really that we can get empowered, we can get this, we can get jobs, we can get employment. But National Trust disabilities, no chance. They only need a legal guardian. So to take them out of that kind of a paradigm, that people had capacity and people could contribute and participate in the community, was a little difficult. But we tried. I don't know. I don't think LLCs work too well. The problem is that many districts don't have an NGO member working in this area. And so you have the neighborhood NGO has to come for the meeting, and they mostly refuse because it's hard. because the collector will call a meeting in a night in 1 day's notice, and they have to travel so many miles, so they don't come. So anyway, whatever, it's a kind of a mixed thing, this local level committee. We also worked on early intervention, and we set up a marketing federation. So we did a whole host of things, which everybody would say you made National Trust like an NGO. I didn't. National Trust was still a government office, and we participated in government, all their programs also, and uh, yeah, it was a great experience for me at the National Trust.
Oh, thank you for recounting all of that. I think
Yeah.
after so many years, just saying it seems like a couple of lines, but I can imagine the kind of effort and the sweat that must have gone in over all of those years. Niramaya is something that is a big project and is still benefiting a lot of parents, right?
Now, fortunately, other health insurance products have come. But when we started Niramya, it was the only health insurance for disabled people.
Right.
And why I was very keen is because many families either don't have the money or they don't
True.
want to spend money on a disabled person's health. I
Yeah.
had seen, in one of our rural projects, in our CDR, we do a lot of CDR in Chennai. I
Hmm.
mean, community-based rehab. And I was at a shop where he was a kind of a blacksmith working, and his child with intellectual disability got burnt. And so we said, "Oh God, he needs treatment. We need to take him to the doctor." He said, "No, it's okay. He'll be okay. Fine." He just didn't want to bother with treatment, and money is the main thing. And that's why I felt at least help. We should see if we can support families to get that. And many families have used this money very well for treatment for disabled, for surgeries in cerebral palsy, and for medication utilization. So it's being used, and I think that's nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I have met so many families where, all of them have shared about how they have definitely enrolled in for Niramaya. Uh, Moving on, I would like to ask you, I really almost, kind of I'm calling you a doctor, because of all of these years of being in here, short of like one
I'm
PhD
not a
in this.
doctor.
I know you're not, but I'm saying it's almost there. So just that somebody hasn't conferred that on you. So how would you say have the programs positively impacted families? All of the programs, whether you've been involved with the National Trust or with Vidya Sagar. Would you please share this with us?
Yes, yes, yes. About I think what I'm very proud of in Vidya Sagar is the alumni of Vidya Sagar. We have the first bank manager with cerebral palsy, Siddharth, who passed out from here. And we have people working in so many banks, people with cerebral palsy. We have a young woman, Uday Rekha, who's a lecturer in a college. And so we found that people with cerebral palsy can do all kinds of jobs. And that's been good. And also with the intellectual disability and autism, we have some of our students have done phenomenally well. In autism, we have fantastic artists. In fact, there's Swaminathan, he has an Instagram page, and his painting sell 20,000, and he's brilliant. Of course, he's an artist by birth, but he was such a hyperactive children. All these kids came when they were 2 years old and 3 years old, and now they're all in their 30s. So I'm very proud of all the students of Vidya Sagar and the parents also. I think somewhere along, I think parents need a little more of understanding that they still haven't understood the capacity and is still very overprotective. But yeah, we have of course, we have a whole lot of mothers on our staff, and we've done the teacher training course that we run. And so it's really a parent project, so to say. Yeah, so it's been good. And even at National Trust, I get good feedback. Even the Arunim marketing, though Arunim closed down, there were about 30 NGOs who really got support very well with Dr. who was the director, and we had a NGO in Birpum, and they were these girls with intellectual disability used to do this katha embroidery. And she took this product of theirs and started making these conference bags and files and things like that. And these kids, they used to earn something like 10,000 rupees in a year. And with Arunim, upscaling their work, that earned 3 lakhs that year. And so those are the kind of things which are really so exciting to hear and think about. And the sustenance and how to keep going at it, these are the problems that haven't got solved, so to say. Yeah, it's been lots of, it's a mixed bag, Chitra. It's mixed of many successes, many
Yeah, I'm
also
sure. Absolutely.
everybody is doing superbly. There are lots of people stuck at home. Many people still looking for jobs and all kinds of things. So we are like,
yeah.
yeah, I think every organization has stories and children who haven't managed to get it, no matter how much inputs you give, but somewhere along the line, you haven't managed to do that one bit. So, that one take them across. But we, of course, are very, try and see that our kids get empowered as possible, and try our best. But yeah, we succeed now and then. Succeed all the time.
I totally understand. Absolutely.
Before I went to National Trust, we had a reputation of our students. How do these disabled children talk back? Well, how do they talk back? Full stop. So we had these kids who would ask questions and say what they want to do and don't want to do. I was so proud of them. Yeah. I brought up kids not fearing failure and not fearing any kind, to be able to face and ask things and, be part of the community. Yeah. And
Ma'am,
so,
what is the future? What's the future looking like for Vidya Sagar? Are there some other major goals that you hope to achieve in the coming years?
see, we now moved into a lifespan approach. Earlier, it was more children. Now we're also working with adults. Because I find that when I went to National Trust, I realized that, hey, RCI works only with courses only for kids. And everybody's only working children, children, children. What is going to happen to the adults? And the worry is, what happens to my child who's 35 years old when I'm no more? And that question which National Trust has to answer, how do we answer that? And so we doing the Bliss is a project for adults, really. It has 9 pillars, and from employment to first helping. It's a person-centered kind of a plan we make for the person, and then there is we're doing workforce development. There's so many. You don't have job coaches in it. You don't have independent travel trainers in India. You don't have support workers or care. I don't want to call them caregivers. We call them caregivers here but caregivers are the parents in the act. So workers who personal attendants as a UNCRPD call. You don't have them here. So there are no support systems for a whole pillar just doing workforce development. And now we've got a whole pool of caregivers, about 56 of them. And then we have the caregivers. I had started a Sayogi program in National Trust, which was closed down now. But I'm the only one who's still struggling, trying to do it, getting funding from. But it's basically trying to the caregiver cell, which has the care seekers and the caregivers, and the care seeker, what is that they need, and making the support plan and deploying caregivers. That's one big job we do here in Vidya Sagar. And so we want to go on. Also, we want to make sure our programs from the hospitals where we work with high-risk babies to early intervention and then to parent training, we want to strengthen and make sure all of them run in a top quality way. But what we're exploring through Bliss is how to build support systems and how to what all the adult with developmental and intellectual disabilities, the National Trust disabilities, so to say, needs. And parents are so worried, but they don't know how, don't know where to start in trying to solve it. So the one pillar is, I'm not going to tell you about all 9 pillars because it's going to take a long time, but I'll just also say reasonable accommodation, like accessibility. We've trained a team to make homes accessible, whether it's a slum housing board house or a big palatial villa. We can help you to make that accessible so that your children can move around, and not that wheelchair users have to be in one room because they can't reach the kitchen. Kitchen too narrow, they can't reach wash basin, they can't cook because it's too high, and so all that kind of thing we're looking at. We make homes accessible too, and the TARA, Team for Accessibility and Reasonable Accommodation, and the Museum of Possibilities is a TARA project.
So that was the most important one that I was coming to next. That there's another feather in your cap,
Yes.
where you've been involved with the Museum of Possibilities. Yes, please do share about this also in Chennai. Yeah.
Yeah. So part of this reasonable accommodation, we accessible transport. So we kind of created a model. We got 2 wingers, in them accessible for wheelchair users, and they're used in the city. Anybody can hire it. A wheelchair user, and many people hire it in the city for their parents or for themselves. Some go to work in it. One girl goes to college every day in it. Our own students use it to go to work, and it's also used by many people to take their parent to the hospital, or sometimes a wedding, and I don't know, my father is 95 and I don't know how to take him there, and can I have your get, it's called get going, can I have the get going then? So that's so it's accessible transport. And then there was Tara, accessible homes. And then we were wanting to set up a demonstration center of assistive devices. But to our amazement, Tamil Nadu government wanted to do the same thing. And so it was all very lovely, as usual, magic of coincidences, and met the commissioner, and we managed to talk about it, how to. And of course, then the whole process, paperwork, they've floated a tender and we answered it. And that's how we got to design and curate. And we're managing the museum at the moment. So the museum is divided into 3 parts. It's a live, work, and play. And it's not disability wise, but it's life domain wise. And we look at all the assistive devices, whether it's for the visually impaired or hearing impaired, or a person, or the locomotor, cerebral palsy, autism, whatever is available in the market. We have a database is showcased at the museum. We also have an accessible home there, a kitchen and a bathroom and a drawing room, a living room and a bedroom. And we have a sensory park for people with autism as an example of what can be done. And of course, play is leisure time. Like we have adapted gardening implements and adapted music implements. And all kinds of stuff. So that's the Museum of Possibilities. We also had a cafe there and a vocational training program where people with learning, bakery, confection, and quick service restaurant. So and the cafe we have a partner in Chennai, a famous bakery called Winner's Bakery. And, it's a beautiful place. You got to come and visit it.
Definitely. I've already marked that. I'm coming for sure. And
it overlooks the sea.
Oh, wow.
So you can sit on the cafe. There's a terrace. You can sit there.
Beautiful. Wow.
Look at the sea and have a pizza and a coffee.
Sure. I'm going to take you with me and we're going to do that together.
Of course. Sure. Yeah.
So, with this kind of experience of being a parent, as well as being involved actively, professionally, also doing this work, what message would you like to convey to parents, caregivers, And individuals with disabilities also may be facing a lot of challenges. What kind of support and guidance would you like to give them?
I think the most precious gift a parent can give a child is self esteem. And I don't think parents should reach when they have disability pride. They should be proud of their children and be proud of the child first, because whatever the disability. But if you can give your child a positive self esteem, battle is won. And that's the whole thing of taking the parents on that journey of grief from denial to really reaching disability pride is what I think parents should work that and make their children feel confident and be proud what they are, and they must interact with the world. You see, what we find when we want to create community support system, they say parents with a disabled child don't tend to participate in their neighborhoods. They don't. We do a neighborhood resource mapping just to see what the child can do and where all can they go. And I'm sorry to say that most parents don't even know the resources available next to their homes, which their child can use and go out. I think go out there and embrace the world is the message I'd like to see. And have pride of who you are and participate in whatever is happening in your neighborhood. And I think you will be included. You are included already then.
Mr. Natarajan, I'm coming to the last question now. What are the three essential changes you envision for better support and services for individuals with disability in India?
Well, okay. The first thing, I think the government and everybody, let's look at accessibility. Let's look at the range in terms of accessibility. I'm talking about from websites being accessible to homes being accessible, to pavements being accessible, to the world becoming an easier place for people to move around. And so, if and access is not an easy concept and easy thing because it's a huge area. It's in all part. All it's also access to textbooks. It's access to knowledge. It's access to information. We need, all kinds of accessible formats in terms of books and things like that. We need accessibility in many areas. And I would say, let's put our weight on accessibility for the moment in terms of all domains of life, so to say. My second message actually is to the families. I think parents really hold back their kids. I feel they're too overprotective and they don't ever let go. The professionals and parents, that's why that's why disabled people had to say nothing about us without us, because they make decisions for them. They just don't believe they can lead their own lives. And this overprotection is what has led to so much of segregation. And, we've never been able to come into the mainstream because of this holding on and not letting go, because I'm so scared. I'm so scared my child has a disability. I don't think that we all in it together. So that parenting is not about just teaching them therapy or, of course it starts with therapy and of course it starts with how to play with your child and how to talk to your child, but it ends with how to let go of your child. And that's where I want parents to reach. And my third wish is to create community support systems, which I'm talking about. And you see, I think they're so isolated and lonely, children with intellectual developmental disabilities. And if we could create from the neighborhood a circle of friends, even if it's 5 or 6 friends around this child, if we could look at the neighborhood and resources, we won't have to create homes which are or at National Trust, every parents association's dream was to set up a residential facility, and that is how I thought of this, because we can Samarth and Gharonda, but I was always thinking this is not the answer. And I think it's about community support systems. I know you can't make the whole world, lower their barriers all at one time. But in a sustained way, we in the sector should work in the neighborhoods of each child to create that support in the community. You can create auto people. I have so many of my friends, alumni, who have, they have their auto bhaiya, their auto anna, as it's called in Chennai. The auto anna supports them in anywhere they want to go, these girls. And they really have a huge support system just in an auto guy. And we invited so many of these auto people who support our alumni, and we gave them tea and had a little celebration with them, and they were so happy to know that they appreciated for what they're doing. So if you go out there, you can find people in the community who will support our children. It's just that the parents never try, not even the local restaurant or the local whoever is in your neighborhood who could, be a friend, be a supporter, make sure that the person with disability is, getting him to be participating in whatever she or he can do. That's where I think community support systems have to get set up. And it's a hard task, but I think that's the only way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts and, getting so deep into all of it. You shared everything that you shared over the years. All of that, capturing it in like a half an hour is really very tough. But thank you for doing all of this so beautifully. I would like to just wrap it by saying that you lobbying for right from the act so many years ago. You've been a front runner advocate. Then setting up of Vidya Sagar Bliss, involved with Museum of Possibilities, so many programs that you ran, whether it's training of caregivers, even handling Niramaya to this date. All of that is really fantastic. Thank you for doing all of this. Your thoughts on your changes you wish to see for our disabled population, on whether it's accessibility or setting up of residential facilities, your want, and how beautifully you talked about the focus on community support systems is something that I will definitely remember very clearly from our interview. So thank you. I'm sure everyone who hears this interview would hopefully be guided in many more ways, and would be advocates to ask for a better world for our children and adults. So thanks a ton, ma'am. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, we have to move from the margins to the to the center.
Yeah.
And we cannot do that unless we also embrace other people's problems. And we participate in other people. That is why we participate in feeble infanticide or corporal punishment. It was not affecting our students, but it affected our government school children. So we participate. I think you participate, you get included. You participate in other people's issues.
Yep.
The disability sector keeps itself so segregated and then says we are segregated and then talks about inclusion. What is inclusion? I think it's a crazy word, first of all, but you have to include yourself by getting into there'll be a music show and there'll be no person with a disability. They just keep themselves out of it all, and then they want to be in hurry. You come in here, you're always welcome. And you get involved in other people's issues, and then they will be involved in your issues, is what I believe.
Lovely. Thank you. I'm signing off at that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You were listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer, the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism. If you find this podcast relevant and interesting, it will be great if you leave a review, share, like, and subscribe. You can also let us know if there is any specific topic that you would like us to cover. Feel free to email her on chitra.iyer@myfinad.com, or you can call her on 9833 785 892. That is 9833 785 892.